Let's learn how to do Adobe Animate character rigging that's actually good using the EDAP Toolset instead of the crappy bone tool. Plus, we'll announce the 5 winners from last week's giveaway.
TipTut.
Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut. Today we're going to take a look at creating the structure, the symbols needed to rig this character using the EDAP toolset. In this episode, we're going to make all the symbols, make sure it's prepared for the rigging correctly. And in the next episode, we're going to rig and animate it. I can't wait to get started, so let's just jump right in. First things first, you should download the Animate Power Tools set. To do this, go to the link in the description, flashpowertools.com, and click on the downloads button. From there, just download the latest version, which at the moment is version 6 exactly, and it will tell you which versions of Flash or Animate it works with here as well. Click download now and save the zip that you get in a safe place and extract it so that you can see this JSFL file. From there, go to Adobe Animate, click on your commands dropdown and choose Run Command. It's important that you have no files open when you do this. From there, navigate to the JSFL file that you just downloaded and click Open. You'll get a dialog pop-up box. Click OK. Accept and read the terms of the license agreement. And it will remind you need to restart Animate so it can initialize. Once Adobe Animate has reopened, just open up a new project or a test project so you can test that the commands have indeed opened. And you'll be able to see this by going to your Windows, Extensions, and you'll see all of the EDAP commands and toolsets here. The other important thing you need to do is go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and make sure that you are on the EDAP CC shortcuts V6 and not the default set of shortcuts. And that is that. You're ready to get started. Okay, so let's get started. If you want to follow along exactly with me, you can download this file from my website, tiptut.xyz. But obviously, the principles will work with any rig that you want to create for yourself. So the first step then is to create what is essentially going to be like the core components or articulation points for our rig. And this is why in my sketch here, I've created a number of circles. For example, we have one here for a shoulder, elbow, and wrist, and tip of the hand, things like that. This is basically be at each one of these circles, there's going to be a point of rotation for our puppet. The reason we can use circles is because it sets a perfect registration and transform point for the base of our symbol so that our puppet we know is going to move perfectly without breaking. More on that as we obviously move forward. But the first process then is to make sure you've got your oval tool selected. And it helps in this instance to have object drawing mode turned on. That's this little button here. And holding shift, for example, I'm just going to create a circle. If you hold Alt, it scales from the center and shift will scale aspect ratio locked. So you have a perfect circle. This will create the base of our character rig here. And I didn't have object drawing mode turned on, so I'm just going to turn that into create object like so. We're going to basically just position all of these circles over all of the points of rotation or articulation here. Control C, Control Shift V will copy and paste in place. And then holding Shift again with Q, we can move this down in scale and just position it over the upper body like so. And that's really all there is to it. I'm just going to go and copy paste all of these over and over again. I'm only actually going to do one arm and one leg at the moment though. We're going to ignore the other one because hopefully what we can do is use the same symbols for one arm as we do for the other arm. We may have to duplicate a hand, for example, but that's not the end of the world. Holding Alt will allow you to copy that symbol if you don't want to press Control C, Control Shift V. And we are just going to accurately align these as possible. So I'll just do this for the rest of the rig and we'll come back into normal speed mode once that's done. Okay, so we have all of our basic circles and these are all just object shapes at the moment. Now it's time to turn these into graphic symbols so that we can use them to create our limbs. Before we do that though, I'm going to de-dock my timeline just so that it's a floating window and I'm just going to pop it over here. This is because we're not going to be doing any animation at the moment, so having all this space wasted is useless, but we will need a whole bunch of layers. So this gives us a lot more room to work with. So let's start with the hips as a good starting point then. I'm going to select this shape. We're going to press F8 and we're going to call this hips. Okay. We need to make sure it is on a graphic and the registration point is set to the center. We'll click OK. Now inside here, we're going to just double click to enter this symbol. We don't actually need this shape here for the hips. This is just going to be the point where the chest is going to connect to it. What we will be doing is drawing the artwork based on these outer edges of this so that when it rotates, we know that it's working properly. So I'm actually just going to call this guide and I'm going to right click and make it a guide layer. And what this means is outside of the symbol, this will no longer show, but any content that we add to it will show. So let's add a new layer on top of that. So let's start drawing. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and give myself a nice bright green fill with no stroke. And I'm just going to draw myself a rectangle. Now using the selection tool, I'm just going to grab and move the points of these rectangle here to the edges of my sketch layer, essentially. And you can hold Control to add an extra point if you want to whilst you're doing this. And I'm just going to come around and get something that is vaguely correct. Now, I'm not being super accurate at this point. We'll be coming back and refining these later on. So I'm not terribly worried about getting it looking beautiful at the moment. All I'm doing is just trying to make it look fairly correct. Okay, so we'll grab all of these points like so. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to need a belt as well as part of this sort of hip layer here. So we'll grab a nice brown color and we'll draw another rectangle. Now it's good practice to make sure that this is on its own layer. So we'll cut that and we'll pop a new layer on top. We'll paste it in place. And of course you can name your layers like so. If you're having trouble seeing, what you can do is just outline your layer like so. And we can do that as well with this one so that we can start pulling according to our sketches. And if you've got snapping turned on, then it becomes quite simple to just pull these into the correct positions. So we keep doing this. I'm actually going to extend this belt a little bit higher than what we need, like so. And we can make it, if you want to, you could make it follow the edges of this circle, but there's really no need so long as it's a little bit higher than the top of the tunic here. And the reason we do that is that when we create our body symbol and we rotate it, there's some content behind just in case we hyperextend the rig a little bit by accident. Okay, so I'm just going to grab both of those layers and I'm going to double click anywhere to come back into our standard scene like so. Now, let's do the same thing with the chest. Okay, but first what we're going to do is double click inside our guide layer here, select our guide shape and copy it. So we're going to turn this into our torso layer or chest layer. Again, graphic registration point set to the center. We'll go inside here and we'll press Ctrl-Shift-V to paste that in place, but we'll then have to manually align to this other shape as well. If you're having trouble seeing it, you can go back inside your hips and you can unguide this layer. And that just gives you the exact position to line it up on. And we essentially want to just get this bang on. So line that up perfectly like so. Fantastic. Now that gives us the base of our torso to start working with so that we know that when we rotate, it's going to rotate along that point. But this layer here, we will pop on its own layer, cut that, paste it in place, and we may end up guiding both of these layers. For some of these won't be guides. They'll be actual shapes that we'll be using as the base of our layer. So let's go on top of this layer then, and let's create the base of the tunic. And we'll just draw ourselves a base rectangle and we'll start from there. So as you can see, let's just outline this layer. The process is fairly simple. Obviously for this character, it's quite a simple style as well, which is helpful. And just holding Control, I'm going to come through and add all the corner points that I think I might need. Remembering, of course, to extend past and behind the other limbs. Now here, I'm just going to extend this tunic down. So we'll grab this down like so and follow the tunic here. That looks pretty good to me. Let's just curve some of these edges so it's not quite so clunky looking. Here, we're just going to extend so that the tunic covers the edge of the shoulder rotation joint, just a little bit. And the same thing goes for there. That works nicely. Let's add a new layer on top and we'll just draw ourselves a nice belt buckle like so. Okay, so like I said, these are placeholders. We'll tidy them up more later on, but I'll do that in fast forward so it's not super boring. But now that we've got a couple of symbols, we need to start separating these out onto their own layers. So let's create a bunch of layers here and we'll just create layers that are named the same thing as the graphic symbols. So we have torso and I believe we have hips as well. We can just check that in the library. So let's grab our torso layer and we can just cut that and paste it in place here. And we can grab our hips layer and we can cut that and paste that in place here. So let's take a look at one of the legs because that requires the duplication of joints and things like that. So first thing I'm going to do is going to grab all of my shape layers and just drag them above the torso and hips, and we'll just call this shapes. Okay. And I'm going to lock the torso and hips so that I don't accidentally select them. Now, you can see here that this is essentially going to be like the top of the upper leg, and then it's going to join at the knee. Okay, so this is also going to be hip singular, not hips plural. So we're going to grab this. We're going to go F8, and we'll just call this hip, or we'll just call it like leg hip so that it's very obvious, and click OK. We'll then copy this knee joint, go inside our leg hip symbol, paste the knee joint and make it exactly in place. Now, in this instance, we're actually going to use these perfect circles because the articulation of these is way more important than the torso and skirt, because they're going to cover up things essentially. These, however, need to be perfect because as the knee rotates, if it's not perfectly aligned, it's going to sort of look a bit janky if the knee bends too far. So we'll just zoom all the way in, make sure that that's lined up perfectly, which they are. And we'll just select both of those now. And inside the leg hip symbol, press Control B to break them apart. They are no longer objects. Hi, Future Matt here to kick past Matt right in the teeth. What I forgot to do for this example was obviously duplicate the shapes and lock them into a guide layer before I did this, just like we did in the torso and hips. I'm a dumbass, my mistake. Make sure to duplicate and put them on a guide layer so you've always got the originals. Let's carry on. Let's grab our line tool, and with snapping turned on, it should be pretty easy to just draw two lines down the legs like so, and we can then delete the inside of those shapes here. And that allows us to fill this with a nice dark brown. And now we have the upper leg with a perfect lower knee. We've also still got this shape for the top of the knee in the same place. So what that means is with this upper leg, which we can now put on its own layer, with that on its own layer, we now have a knee joint, which is the top of the knee in exactly the same position as the bottom of the left leg hip symbol, which means we can press F8 and we can call this left knee like so. We can copy the ankle, Control C, go inside left knee, paste the ankle in position, line it up perfectly, and do the exact same thing. Select both of these, break them apart. Let's make them the same brown color, and let's fill the brown color in as well. And also you don't need to delete those inner shapes because it's all the same color. You can just all fill it in like this. Okay, let's go back into this symbol. Let's place it on its own layer with a cut and a paste. And of course, rename left leg knee. Now, what this means is we can select our transform tool, and if we rotate this knee, you get a perfect knee joint all the way around with no breaking. Okay. Now, of course, if we just select both of these, at the moment, our rig doesn't work properly, but let's just temporarily move that up there. We could move our leg all the way out and the knee would still be in working order. And don't worry, we'll get to the skirt, fixing the skirt in the later step. Okay, let's undo all of that. Now, the rest of this rig is exactly the same process as creating this leg. So I'll just quickly create the boot. We'll finish off this one leg, and then we can go back and in fast forward mode, I'll do the rest because it's the exact same process. So with the leg finished, I want to quickly talk about bounding boxes and the importance of registering your symbols correctly. And we'll use this simple example to illustrate the point and then go back to our rig to see it work in practice. But say here I have two pretty much identical symbols, could be an upper arm, could be an upper leg, whatever, doesn't matter. If I select this symbol on the left here, you'll notice that this bounding box is completely broken. It doesn't follow the shapes of our lines at all. Whereas if I select this similar symbol here, it absolutely does. So I can transform, rotate, skew, scale, etc. And I get the behavior that you would expect based on where the anchor and registration point is, with a nice, neat bounding box that surrounds it. Whereas this one here, we don't get that at all. We get the rotational value and we get the stuff like that. But as soon as you start to skew, it starts to break dramatically. And this is because the parameters of this bounding box are based on internal coordinates, which come from the registration point. Now, if you don't know or care what that means, that's fine. We'll jump back and look at our character's arm and we'll talk about what this actually means in the real world. So I'll just show you a more dramatic example of that as a final thing. Let's take our upper shoulder here. We'll press F8 and we'll just say left shoulder. So with the left shoulder, again, we'll copy the elbow, and inside the left shoulder here, we will just paste that elbow and we'll move it into position. Once again, being as accurate as we physically can be. Now, back on our main timeline, you can see we have a very ugly bounding box. If we were to scale this, we're not going to get the behavior that we expect, especially when it comes to skewing. You get quite unpredictable behavior. The way to fix this is I'm going to rotate this arm down. And it's best to do this once you've finished your artwork, but just for, demonstration purposes. Let's then press Shift T and it will rebound that box to the shape, the best shape it can, based on those new registration coordinates, which means that our arm box is now much more predictable when it comes to skewing, squashing, stretching, rotating. So we can start building our arm and not worrying about the position or rotational value, because the way you can test this is if you select your symbol and you go up to here and go edit and then edit selected, it will open up that symbol in isolation and you can see that the base rotation of our symbol, now that we've changed it, is back down to this purely vertical style, okay? Even though here it's rotated. Okay, so with that technique in mind, I'm going to go through now and just do the rest of this content for this character. And we'll do that in fast forward because it's exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to waste your time with that. And I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just going through and repeating a lot of the same techniques that we did for the chest and the legs. I'm also not trying to tie down the artwork too much at the moment, just focusing on core shapes and elements so that we can get the rig down. And then later on, the beauty of this technique is that it's so flexible, you can come back and refine the artwork whenever you please. So nothing clever going on here at all. But if you are struggling with drawing like this, instead of, drawing with a pen tablet, or even if you're just new to drawing and animate in general, I do have a tutorial on how to quote unquote draw with a mouse, which you might find quite useful. All the techniques that I'm fast forwarding through here are explained in detail in that tutorial. So like I said, putting together the rest of the character elements for this rig using basic shapes, pen tools, rectangles, etc. And then just at the very end, copy pasting the arms and swapping out one of the symbols for the hand so that it's not holding the sword. So once you've finished all of that, you should have a collection of graphics that are all at the moment completely independent. But what you should see when you select your character is a perfectly formed collection of symbols, all with correct bounding boxes, ready to go to be rigged, which we're going to do in the next episode. But before we do that, we should probably announce the winners from our last episode, where we have 5 premium licenses to give away. So let's do that. Okay, so here we are. We're going to pick 5 random winners using this random comment selector. And each of those 5 winners will be getting a license key for the premium version of EDAP. But never fear, you can continue doing this whole series from start to finish with the free version of EDAP as well. So don't panic. You'll still be able to follow along next episode. Okay, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, go. Our first winner is Lava Lamp Mind, who said, I'd like EDAP because it would be immensely useful to start out with the proper set of tools instead of eternally relearning in order to get a desired outcome. I want to win because drawing with a poorly made pencil will always frustrate the artist immensely, an adage people at Adobe might have missed to coin for themselves. Well, congratulations, Lava Lamp Mind. You are the first of our 5 winners. Here comes the next one. Okay, re-rolling for number 2. Here we go. The second winner is Kineas Tony Tuthill. After a long break, I'm back to wanting to create animation. I finally got my head around After Effects too. That license would help a lot. Look forward to your new tutorials. Cheers. Well, Kineas Tony Tuthill, fantastic name, first of all. This will definitely make the Adobe Animate workflow a lot more like the After Effects workflow, where you actually have full inverse kinematics. So I'm happy to say that will definitely help you. Congratulations for winning. And let's take a look at our third winner. Okay, round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. The third winner is the Humble Peasant. Fantastic a name. 2 other animators and myself are trying to buckle down to finish a 2D animated opening type tool sequence to pair with a pitch Bible down the road. I really think this would improve our workflow exponentially. I agree, it would. I've been trying to figure out how to speed up / streamline our production. I know if I had access to the premium tools and could follow along with your future videos, I could teach them and we could start knocking out scenes at a much faster pace. Thank you so much for creating all this Adobe Animate content, man. You're awesome. Keep up the good work. You're awesome. And you're also a winner. And this is definitely a workflow streamlining tool. So it's good to see that you already understand that. Congratulations, Humble Peasant. You are winner number 3. Let's go again. Okay, here comes winner number 4. Are you ready for this? It's going to be Jenna Carey. Hey, I'm pretty sure you are a member. I love this, she says simply, with a clown emoji. Well, I love it too. It's fantastic. Jenna Carey, well done. You are winner number 4, and it's time to pick the final winner. Here we go. Okay, 5th and final winner. Around it goes. Who's it going to be? Izzy L. Well, Izzy L, first of all, lovely big smile. Good for you, man. I've been learning Animate for some months now, and I've been struggling with the bone tool for several weeks. Tell me about it. I've been interested in this product, but have my concerns that I won't fully understand it. This would be my opportunity to learn the product. Thanks, Izzy. Well, Izzy, there are a myriad of fantastic tutorials already on the Flash Power Tools website, but there'll also be this series you're watching right now. So hopefully you can get to grips with it pretty fast. Thank you so much. That is our 5th and final winner. So to all the winners, the way to claim is very simple. Just reach out on social media. All of my tags are at TipTut Zone. You can do Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. I prefer Instagram if possible. Reach out via a direct message, and we will discuss from there. And before anyone tries to cheat, there will be a way to prove that they are who they say they are. So just pop me a message at TipTut Zone on any of the popular social medias, and you can pick up your license key. To everybody else, thank you so much for entering, but there are only 5 to give away. Perhaps there'll be more in the future, but it is well worth the 50 quid or whatever it is that costs to get this plugin. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll see you next time for part 2, where we actually get to rig and animate this beautiful character. Massive thank you to my level 2 and above members, without whom this channel would not be possible, alive, or even in this realm of existence, you lovable buggers. Click the join button, become a member like these people go. Oh my god!
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.